United States Penitentiary, New York, 2015. The walls were thick enough to swallow screams. 20-foot fences wrapped in razor wire glinted under floodlights that never turned off. Armed towers stood at each corner like silent executioners. In cell 307, a man sat still. Michael J. Thorne, 38, stared at a creased photo resting on his knees. A little girl in a yellow sundress laughing mid-spin. His daughter. He hadn't seen her in nearly 7 years. Michael wasn't the usual kind of inmate. No gang tattoos, no brash talk. He walked like a man trained to survive war, which he had. A former Marine with medals buried under the weight of betrayal. After his service, he became a defense contractor. Smart, precise, too trusting. He was framed for stealing federal secrets and selling them overseas. Only he didn't. But the feds didn't care. They needed a name, and he was convenient. His cellmate, a stocky Puerto Rican named Lopez, watched him from the top bunk. "You ever sleep?" Lopez asked, his voice rough like gravel. "You just sit there all night thinking?" Michael didn't answer. He folded the photo gently and slid it inside the cover of an old torn book, U.S. Army Survival Manual. Not borrowed, smuggled, marked. Outside the cell, the prison was a beast of routine. Lights on at 5 a.m., count at 6, chow at 7, work detail, chow again, lights out by 10, repeat. Guards marched like clockwork, clipboards in hand, batons swinging. The prisoners moved like ghosts in orange, some loud, some broken, most forgotten. Michael worked in the laundry, 4 days a week, scrubbing sheets stained with sweat and blood. But he wasn't there to wash clothes. He was mapping vents, tracking guard rotations, noting camera blind spots. He worked with the patience of a man chiseling his way out of hell with a toothpick. Everyone called him Ghost. Not because he was invisible, but because no one could get a read on him. He didn't smile, he didn't flinch, and he didn't talk unless he had to. In the yard, inmates formed tight circles, Aryans in one corner, black gangs in another, Latinos watching all. Michael moved through them without belonging anywhere. That made him dangerous, or stupid, or both. One afternoon he crossed paths with Rico, a gang enforcer with a reputation for stabbing first and asking never. Rico shoulder-checked him. "What's up, Ghost?" Rico said. "You walk like you own this place." Michael didn't break stride. "If I did, I'd have burned it down already." Rico laughed, but his eyes narrowed. "Watch yourself." "I already do." Michael kept walking. He wasn't interested in fights. He had a mission, a reason. Every night he returned to cell 307 and pulled out a hand-drawn map he'd etched onto his bedsheet with pencil lead. Lines marked vents, pipes, electrical runs. He studied it the way generals studied battlefields. At 2 a.m., the prison was still, except for the occasional shuffle of a guard or the distant cough of an inmate. That's when he listened most carefully, to footsteps, to silence, to opportunity. Michael had spent 2 years collecting intel. The 4 a.m. guard slept during his post in Laundry Hall. Door number 3 had a loose hinge that didn't trip the main alarm when opened slowly. A maintenance tunnel ran beneath the chapel that led, eventually, toward the outside perimeter wall. The outer camera rotated every 22 seconds, leaving a 3-second dead spot. 3 seconds was all he needed. But why risk it? Because tomorrow, his daughter turned 10. Because the system stole his life for a crime he didn't commit. Because freedom wasn't just a wish. It was the only thing keeping him breathing. In the library, he read anything technical. Architecture, plumbing systems, old military tunnels. No one noticed when he checked out the same books again and again. They thought he was just another quiet guy doing time. Michael didn't care what they thought. He was building the impossible inside his head, piece by piece. Lopez noticed the way he traced the same parts of the prison floor with his eyes. "You planning something?" he asked one night, suspicious. Michael replied without looking up. "Planning? Number?" He paused, then looked Lopez dead in the eye. "Escaping." Lopez blinked, then laughed nervously, but Michael didn't. He just folded his sheet, turned off the light, and laid back down. Somewhere beyond those walls was the life they stole from him, and soon he was going to take it back. Michael J. Thorne knew that breaking out of a U.S. federal penitentiary wasn't a fantasy. It was war. And like any war, it needed intelligence, timing, and a plan built to the inch. He wasn't just trying to run, he was trying to vanish. It started with observation. For 6 months, Michael tracked every detail of the prison's daily rhythm. He never looked obvious doing it. He asked harmless questions, swapped shifts, made himself useful, invisible. The laundry block where he worked had a floor drain with a broken steel grate. Most men ignored it. Michael measured the opening with a piece of string he tucked into his sock. 14 inches wide. Just big enough if he shed 20 pounds and dislocated a shoulder. He paid attention to guard Reyes, a man in his late 50s who worked the night shift. Reyes smoked menthols behind the boiler room at exactly 4:17 a.m. every Thursday, leaving his post for 6 minutes. Long enough. Michael memorized the maintenance tunnel system, narrow, half-flooded, and crawling with rodents, but it connected the laundry to the chapel. He learned from an old inmate who used to work maintenance back in the early 2000s. The tunnel wasn't on updated maps because it was decommissioned after a partial collapse. Most believed it had been sealed completely. It wasn't. He began assembling tools, slowly, carefully, quietly. From the machine shop, a thin hacksaw blade wrapped in electrical tape and hidden inside a Bible. From the laundry room, bleach bottles filled with water, sealed and stashed behind dryers as flotation devices, in case he needed to cross the storm drains. From the kitchen, a metal serving tray, cut and folded into makeshift shims. And from the library, knowledge, books on structural engineering, electrical circuits, and prison history. He even found an article in an old magazine about the original prison layout from the 1970s. It confirmed the existence of a storm drain that emptied half a mile outside the facility, behind an abandoned silo. That was his exit. He trained his body like a machine, stopped eating meat, ran in place in his cell, did push-ups until his arms burned. He dropped 18 pounds over 3 months, all muscle and purpose. He built a clock in his head, knew exactly how many seconds it took to get from the laundry to the tunnel hatch, knew which door hinges groaned and which opened smooth. Every movement was rehearsed in the dark of his cell like choreography. And yet, he never told anyone the full plan, not even Lopez. "Something's coming," Lopez said one night. "You've got that look, like you're halfway out the door." Michael just nodded. "You should sleep light tomorrow." He didn't need help. He couldn't risk betrayal. A rumor in a place like this could be fatal. Everyone wanted out. Not everyone wanted it quietly. In the chapel during a fake prayer session, he slipped a shim behind a loose panel. That panel would be his tunnel access point when the time came. But one night, everything almost collapsed. Guard Reyes came back early from his smoke. Michael was still in the utility hallway, pressed against the wall, hidden behind a laundry cart. Reyes paused, sniffed the air, looked around. Michael didn't move. Not an inch, not a breath. His hand was wrapped around a sharpened toothbrush, just in case. The guard shrugged and kept walking. Michael waited 3 more minutes before slipping back into his routine like nothing had happened. After that, he doubled his prep, changed the date, cleaned his tracks. He knew there'd be no second chance, no alarms, no hesitation. When the night came, it had to be perfect. He marked the day with a single dot on the inside of his pillowcase. Friday, June 5th, 2015. In 4 days, at 4 a.m., Michael Thorne would disappear. Friday, June 5th, 2015, 3:43 a.m. The prison was still, the kind of stillness that only comes in the final hours before dawn, before the routines, the orders, the noise of confinement returned. But inside cell 307, Michael Thorne wasn't sleeping. He sat on the edge of his bunk, lacing his boots tight, methodical, focused. Lopez stirred above him. "This it?" Michael didn't answer. He stood, tucked the Bible under his arm, and nodded once. He had 18 minutes. 3:45 a.m. The buzzer rang softly through the block. It was the laundry detail call. 2 other inmates rose to join him, rubbing sleep from their eyes. None of them suspected anything. They moved through the dark hall under low guard supervision. Michael walked with them, same as always, except tonight he wasn't coming back. He entered the laundry room like it was just another shift. A dull hum from the dryers filled the air. Steam curled through overhead pipes. One guard, Reyes, leaned on a crate with a cup of coffee, barely paying attention, eyes tired, watching nothing. Michael moved quickly. He slid behind the washing units, reached behind the ventilation pipe, and retrieved the bleach bottle flotation device. Then he crouched near the broken drain and pulled the grate free with a shim hidden in his waistband. The gap in the floor yawned open. He hesitated just long enough to count. 1, 2, 3 seconds. No alarm, no footsteps, just hissing pipes and Reyes muttering to himself. Michael dropped down into the darkness. 3:52 a.m. The air hit him like a punch, cold, damp, metallic. He landed in a narrow concrete shaft full of stagnant water and rat droppings. The tunnel was less than 3 feet wide and barely tall enough to crawl. He clicked on a tiny LED light taped beneath his collar and moved. The maintenance tunnel curved right, then left. He counted his turns. 1, 2, 3, each one memorized. Every inch had been mapped in his head. 10 minutes later, he reached the old chapel access hatch. The panel was corroded but loose. He'd tested it 3 times over the last month. Tonight, he pushed it open and entered a crawl space under the chapel floorboards. Above him, footsteps. A late-shift janitor sweeping the pews. Michael froze, heart hammering. He waited. The sweeping stopped, then resumed, and finally faded. He moved again, slower now, quieter. He pushed open a maintenance panel behind the altar and slipped into a hallway that hadn't been used in years. One more door, door number 3. He pulled out the homemade shim and worked the lock. 2 clicks. The hinge creaked softly, but no siren, no buzz. He was out. 4 a.m., outside the building. The yard was 50 yards away, but he didn't head there. He turned left, crouching low, sticking to the shadows between buildings. He reached the storm drain behind the kitchen, the final gate, a rusted panel half buried in weeds. He wrenched it open with the serving tray, now sharpened into a pry tool. He crawled into the pipe. Cold, rushing water greeted him like ice. He slid the bleach bottle under his stomach for buoyancy and let the current take him. The pipe was black and loud, echoing every breath, every splash. He counted again. 100 yards. 200. The grate at the end was old, rusted, bent outward. He kicked it once, twice. The metal shrieked but gave way. 4:17 a.m. Michael Thorne emerged into a ditch surrounded by overgrowth. His prison-issued boots squelched in the mud. He looked up. No floodlights, no walls, just sky and freedom. He didn't stop running until the penitentiary was a dot behind him. Friday, June 5th, 2015, 6:12 a.m. The prison sirens screamed like dying animals. Red lights flashed down cold concrete corridors as guards scrambled from stations, radios crackling with panic. One phrase kept repeating over and over. Inmate Michael J. Thorne, missing from cell 307. Lock it down. Inside the control tower, Captain Rollins, a veteran of 2 decades, slammed his fist on the console. He's gone? What do you mean he's gone? He clocked into laundry at 3:45, a younger guard stammered. Didn't clock out. And Reyes didn't notice anything unusual. Rollins didn't wait. Lock down all exits, all towers, armed. Get the dogs, get the feds. 30 miles away, Michael was already moving through the back roads of upstate New York. Wet, freezing, exhausted, but alive. He wore a change of clothes he'd hidden weeks earlier in a culvert. Torn jeans, flannel shirt, ball cap. He looked like any other drifter walking the edge of a forgotten county road. His plan wasn't to run fast. It was to vanish slowly. He headed east, avoided major roads, stole food from an unlocked bait shop, slept in an abandoned camper outside a gravel pit. He never stayed anywhere more than 6 hours. By day 3, his face was on every local news channel. Escaped prisoner, armed and dangerous, the headlines blared. His mugshot, military haircut, calm eyes, stared down from highway signs and gas station bulletin boards. The FBI got involved. Helicopters, bloodhounds, heat sensors in the woods. They interviewed Lopez, searched every tunnel, every duct. Lopez gave them nothing. Guy never said more than 10 words to me. He shrugged. Smart guy, quiet, a ghost. Agents tore the prison apart. They found the sheet maps, the Bible blade, the shims, the drain. All of it was surgical. No help, no chaos, just execution. This wasn't a breakout, one agent muttered. This was a military operation. By day 5, Michael had crossed into Vermont. He slept in barns, swam across a narrow river in the dead of night. At one point, he stole a bicycle and pedaled 15 miles through a state park, disguised under a hooded raincoat. No cameras, no witnesses. The news called him dangerous. They speculated he'd flee to Canada, hijack a car, maybe take hostages. Michael did none of that. He called no one, carried no phone, left no trail. His only contact was a letter, postmarked from Vermont, sent to his daughter's grandmother in New Jersey. It arrived one morning, handwritten on plain-lined paper. It read, "Tell her I never stopped thinking about her. Tell her I didn't run away. I ran toward something. One day when it's safe, I'll explain everything. Dad." The letter was passed to the FBI. No fingerprints, no DNA, just a ghost reaching out through the fog. By day 9, the trail had gone cold. The dogs lost his scent near the Connecticut border. Locals reported seeing a man who might have looked like him sleeping under a bridge, but it turned up nothing. Law enforcement widened the perimeter. The FBI released an updated age progression photo, theorizing he had altered his appearance, shaved his head, grown a beard, possibly escaped by boat or train. But truthfully, they didn't know. No one did. He vanished so completely, they began calling him the Phantom Marine. And somewhere out there, under an assumed name, in a nameless town, Michael J. Thorne was watching the manhunt unfold on a diner TV, sipping black coffee, invisible in plain sight. 2 years later, September 2017. Location classified. A man in his early 40s sat behind the wheel of an old pickup truck, engine idling low. He wore a trucker hat, thick beard, and calloused hands that looked like they'd spent years laying pipe or fixing roofs. A cigarette burned in his fingers, untouched. He watched a girl across the parking lot, 11 years old now, long dark hair, wearing a soccer jersey, laughing as she ran to a minivan. Her mother waved to someone unseen and climbed in. They drove away. The man never moved, didn't approach, didn't wave. He just exhaled smoke and whispered, "Happy birthday, baby girl." Then he pulled onto the road and disappeared again. Michael Thorne was never officially found. The FBI quietly downgraded his status from active manhunt to passive surveillance after 14 months. They never admitted it publicly, but the truth was clear. The trail had gone ice cold. He was gone, and his escape had left a permanent scar on the U.S. prison system. The New York Penitentiary Review Board published a 187-page report titled Operation Ghost: Breach, Oversight, and System Failure. It detailed the flaws exposed by Michael's breakout: inadequate maintenance documentation of old infrastructure, untrained guards on critical overnight shifts, poor surveillance blind spots in laundry and chapel corridors, no redundancy on outer perimeter motion sensors, heads rolled. 3 senior wardens resigned. Guard Reyes, the one who stepped out for his 4:17 a.m. cigarette, was fired and later charged with negligence. He tried to sue the Bureau of Prisons for wrongful termination and lost. The prison underwent a $3.2 million security overhaul. Every tunnel was sealed. Floor plans were digitized and updated. Rotations changed weekly. Cell searches doubled. Inmates were no longer allowed to work alone in laundry or kitchen facilities. Inmate library access was restricted, monitored, and vetted for engineering or escape-related content. They even changed the damn locks. But it was too late. What haunted them most wasn't how he escaped. but why he succeeded. Because Michael Thorne had done it with no weapons, no violence, and no help. Just patience, intelligence, and quiet desperation. The media kept the story alive for years. Documentaries, podcasts, Netflix specials. The Phantom Marine, one man versus the system. Escape artist inside the greatest prison break you've never heard of. Former Marines were interviewed. Some defended him. He was a patriot. They burned him. Others disagreed. He took the oath. You don't break the law, no matter what. The debate never settled. His daughter, now 13, still lived in New Jersey. A trust fund under her name began receiving small deposits in cash through anonymous sources. The IRS couldn't trace it, but the amounts matched what a carpenter or mechanic might earn under the table. Someone, somewhere, was still looking out for her. In 2021, a retired marshal spoke on a private podcast. Look, I've tracked cartel runners, mafia men, terrorists, but Thorne? He was different. He didn't run for money or to kill. He ran to be free. And honestly, the system failed him first. Michael's escape triggered not just prison reform, but public discussion on wrongful convictions and military veterans abandoned by the system. 2 senators even cited his case during a federal oversight hearing, pushing for stricter review of federal contractor prosecutions. Quietly, his name was entered into a sealed congressional archive. No one knew where he was now. Maybe he worked under a new name in Canada. Maybe he lived off-grid in the mountains of Maine. Or maybe he was still out there, watching from afar, waiting for the world to forget. One thing was certain. Michael J. Thorne didn't break out to disappear. He broke out because the system forgot what it owed him. And he reminded it, one step at a time in the dark of night, that ghosts don't fade. They haunt.